Hello, I'm Jon Delano, KDKA-TV political editor. Thanks for joining us for Inside Pennsylvania Politics. We're bringing you weekly political discussions in the run-up to Pennsylvania's primary election this coming Tuesday, April 23. We've assembled a panel of young, politically active Pennsylvanians from diverse backgrounds and opinions. Elections are about the future, so who better to talk about that than the young? So when we designed this show, I said we only need one old guy on the panel, and that's me. Everyone else is a few decades younger. Joining us on our left side of our panel, Lindsay Aquino Robles, a Democrat from Squirrel Hill, board member of Young Democrats of Allegheny County, and program director of the local chapter of the Association of Latino Professionals for America. Christian Sesek, an attorney in Washington, Pennsylvania, chair of the New Deal Democrats of Fayette County, and a former Biden delegate at the 2020 convention. To my right, Madison Campbell, a Republican from Lawrenceville, CEO of a healthcare company and founder of Survivor PAC, to elect those supportive of sexual assault survivors. And Dylan Mitchell, a Pine Township resident, a junior at the University of Pittsburgh, where he is also the vice president of the College Republicans at Pitt. And he's also the board chair of the Academic Republicans of Pittsburgh. While both Trump and Biden are now their party's presumed nominees based on delegates, and their opponents have all officially dropped out, there's still the possibility that voters will register their displeasure with their options with a protest vote. On the Republican side, former ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley is on the Tuesday ballot. She's garnered between 13 and 18% of the vote in states that have held primaries since she dropped out on March 6. And on the Democratic side, Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota is still on the ballot in Pennsylvania. He also ended his campaign on March 6. In some states, Democratic voters are opting to vote for no candidate at all, voting to write in uncommitted. In Pennsylvania, a group backed by the Democratic Socialists of America is urging Democrats to write in uncommitted on the April 23rd ballot. Organizers say the campaign intends to send a message to President Biden to end the war in Gaza. So, question to our panel is, do you see candidates taking these protest votes seriously? Should they? Is there going to be a protest vote one way or the other? What do you think, Madison?
100% there is going to be a protest vote. In fact, we've seen the uncommitted movement be incredibly successful.
In both parties?
Well, I would say mostly in the Democratic Party.
So you think there'll be no protests for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, folks voting for Nikki Haley?
I think maybe some people just won't come out to the polls, but I specifically think that the uncommitted vote is going to impact the Democratic Party the most.
All righty. What about you, Lindsay? What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, I do believe that people will come out to vote, but it really depends on how they're feeling with our candidates.
Right. Well, I guess the question is, will there be enough people who protest Joe Biden on the Democratic side to come out and vote against him, either for Dean Phillips or to do a write-in or something? What do you think?
I think there will be a few write-ins for sure.
For sure. What about you, Dylan, in the Democratic Party? What do you think is going to happen?
What I think we're going to see is we're going to definitely see an undervote for President Biden, and I think that you will certainly see an undervote for Nikki Haley, or where they're going to vote for Nikki Haley in lieu of voting for Donald Trump. And I think that will provide some perspective on where the candidates need to make up ground. I could see Nikki Haley votes coming out of the Philadelphia suburbs. I could see a lot of Dean Phillips votes or other votes coming out of perhaps southwestern Pennsylvania against the sitting president. And so I think that will give the candidates some perspective on who they need to work on and what votes they need to earn going into November's election.
What do you think, Dylan, in both parties? Do you think there'll be a protest vote against Donald Trump and Joe Biden?
I mean, I think what Christian says is pretty accurate. I think there's always going to be, especially among young people, I know a lot of people that are kind of fed up with the fact that it's going to be, no matter who's elected, it's
going to be the oldest president
in history. Yeah. So I know a lot of people, I don't think they're going to vote for Nikki Haley. I know a lot of people who just plan on writing in their preferred candidate from the primary, most of which was not Nikki Haley. But I think that uncommitted vote, those people that do the write-ins, is people's way of showing who they want to represent their party. Right. And it does show who those candidates need to make up for.
Well, as you know, there are other races on the ballot besides the presidential race. The statewide race with the most candidates is Attorney General, and there's no incumbent running in that race. 5 Democrats are running: Kier Bradford Gray, Eugene DePasquale, Joe Kahn, Jared Solomon, and Jack Stolzheimer. There are also 2 Republican candidates for Attorney General: Craig Williams and Dave Sunday. With so many candidates, do you think voters are paying any attention at all to this race? Dylan, we'll start with you.
Most young people I know, honestly, they don't pay attention to these races. I think that's kind of an issue, that especially in the primary season, they're more concerned with worrying about presidential elections. You're lucky to get them to care about a congressional race. These down ballot races that are the like attorney general, I mean, I've spoken with Dave Sunday. I think he's got a great record. He's a great candidate. And he seems to have the most support, so I think he'll win the primary on the Republican side. But I wish more people were paying attention to it, because these are important races still.
Yeah, he is the district attorney from York County, I believe, and he's
Yes.
running against State Representative Craig Williams, who is from Delaware County,
Yes.
and who says he's the real Republican because Dave Sunday became a Republican at age 37. So he, according to Craig Williams, is not to be trusted. But, you know, people switch parties all the time, so that's normal. Madison, what do you think of the Attorney General's race?
I think the Attorney General race is one of the most important races in the state. Because if you look at, for instance, crime, right, generally speaking, you know, I like to make the joke that AG usually stands for aspiring governor. We see that with Shapiro, who came as an AG to then be governor.
And Tom Corbett.
And Tom Corbett. So from the Democratic side, you know, what we're looking at is a bunch of people that want to eventually become governor. From the Republican side, you have Dave Sunday, who actually wants to bring law and order across this state. And you see that in his track record. You know, I'm a sexual assault survivor. That's incredibly important to me, to have somebody who cares so much about human trafficking.
Right.
And he actually set up a human trafficking task force that really, really helped across the state.
Yeah. So let me ask, on the Democratic side, 5 candidates for Democrats to sort through. Do you have any idea who any of these folks are, Kristen?
I've known Eugene DePasquale for a period of time.
He's
and
the Pittsburgh guy.
He is the Pittsburgh guy, and I believe that will be to his advantage. The simple fact is you have 5 candidates on the ballot. 4 of them are from the east side of the state, and only 1 is from western Pennsylvania. I believe the votes will be very, very split up on the east side of the state, and I think that we can see DePasquale become the next Attorney General, provided that that happens and that everything goes his way in the fall.
Yeah. Lindsay, what do you make of that Attorney General's race? Are you familiar with any of these candidates?
I am, actually. We work a lot, especially with the young Dems, getting our young voters to really understand who's running and who these candidates are, and getting face-to-face experiences to ask these questions, right? And like Christian said, because he's from this area, from Allegheny County, I think that's going to be in his favor. So I do believe that he's going to turn out.
You know, a couple of these candidates on the Democratic side have been running TV ads. Eugene DePasquale is not one of them. So I'm wondering whether it doesn't make a difference that we're seeing TV ads from Jared Solomon and from Jack Stolzheimer in this race?
For what it's worth, I had someone reach out to me just in the past week and say, Christian, who do you think I should vote for? And I've always been very cognizant of the fact that it's not my place to tell you who to vote for, but I'll let you know what I know about the candidates, and you can ultimately make your choice. But what I have done in that instance is take note of the fact that that individual said to me, I'm voting for Solomon. And I said, why is that? And she said, for the very reason that you'd stated. I've seen him on television. I like what he says, and I've already planned to vote for him in advance of what's happening. Yeah. So I think that is having an effect.
I have not seen TV ads for either of the Republican candidates yet, and maybe that's. Tell me, are we doing direct mail? How are they reaching voters?
There's no need. Dave Sunday is going to win. He has the endorsements. Yep. He is by far the better candidate, and so there's really no need in a Republican primary to unnecessarily spend that money when he should be spending it in the general.
That makes a lot of good sense. And in fact, candidates who think they're going to win rarely spend a lot of effort in the primary. But it is an opportunity to get in front of voters. And, you know, I always say, even if you're running unopposed in the primary, you should probably at least get a lawn sign out there somewhere along the way. The Attorney General's race, as you said, Madison, and very accurately, AG standing for aspiring governor, it is an important race. And my final question, we only have a minute here, in terms of issues, what exactly is influencing young people when it comes to an office like this? Or do they just go in and, you know, they got choices. If they're Democrats or Republicans, they've got a choice for Attorney General. What are they going to do? Lindsay?
Again, I'll go back to the education part, right? Really understanding who these candidates are and what they're proposing is very important. And We have people from Young Dems here at Pitt, which is a great resource for especially our college students. Being part of Allegheny Young Dems is also a great resource for folks who might not understand what's happening in politics right now, and getting them connected with the right resources.
Well, I think you are both have organizations, in fact, all of them, because there's young Republicans in Allegheny County as well as the college Republicans. But the problem is that well, you tell me, it seems to me that most young people, and maybe a lot of old folks, don't take the time to find out who these people are. Christian?
I would say that's certainly my experience, and in the case that I just cited with folks asking for my opinion, you know, do you know this person? Have you interacted with this person? What are your thoughts on this person? Because they don't know necessarily, and certainly young people with, you know, so many things happening, I feel will be apathetic, generally speaking, that when you get down to a row office on the ballot, it's probably going to be a hard-pressed effort to make sure that they have interest. And I think that it's all about education. I would agree.
Do you think there are going to be a lot of younger folks interested in the AG's race, particularly?
A lot of them don't pay attention to it. I think a lot of people are probably going to walk in, look at the ballot, and real quick pull out their phone and Google the names on the ballot. And they're going to see that Dave Sunday is the only candidate in the race with relevant experience as DA that has a proven track record. So I think he's a shoo-in.
Right. Interesting. Well, we're going to wrap up our discussion there if we can, and I'm going to just give you a little hint of what's coming up, because we're going to profile the candidates for another office that people don't seem to care about, Auditor General, and how about State Treasurer? All that's coming up next. Stick with us. Welcome back. In 2 statewide races this year, Democrats are hoping to unseat a Republican incumbent. But first, they need to pick their candidates. Starting with State Treasurer, I spoke to the 2 Democrats, each hoping to win the primary, and the Republican who the winner will face in November. 4 years ago, Republican Stacey Garrity defeated the incumbent State Treasurer. Now 2 Democrats want to win back this office. Ryan Bizzarro, a state representative from Erie County, and Erin McClellan, a small businesswoman from Allegheny County. Both stress their experience.
I actually have run a small business and made a payroll, which I think is one of my biggest assets, having done that for almost a decade. I have extensive training in process improvement. I've actually worked on the front line of a large government agency, having worked for the Department of Human Services for just under a decade there.
We need a treasurer who has relationships with the legislature in order to get these programs done and across the finish line. I have 10 years of relationships with both the House and Senate, Democrat and Republicans, plus the other row office candidates and current office holders. I'm the guy for the job, and I'm the guy that can truly modernize Treasury and use it to be an office for the people.
While both Democrats have largely focused their criticisms on the Republican incumbent, they do disagree themselves, says McClellan of Bizzarro.
So I've actually seen operationally how government works, which is a lot different than just pushing yay or nay and writing policy as a legislator.
Bizzarro criticizes McClellan as someone who has run for other offices.
First and foremost, this is not a vanity project for me. I don't run for multiple offices. Any office that I've run for, I've been successful at it. I have the endorsement of the state party. I have the endorsement of folks in labor.
As for this race, both Bizzarro and McClellan think they can win.
I think that we've been putting in the work. I think we have a real message that fits in with the ticket that really shows that we are moving forward with this office and bring real policy and real ideas to the table. And I think a woman on the ballot always plays well in a Democratic primary. So I feel really good about this one.
With the help of the voters, I have every expectation of winning on April 23rd, and I'm respectfully asking all of your viewers for their vote.
The Republican Stacey Garrity is unopposed in her primary. Democrats will choose their nominee on April 23rd. And in the race for State Auditor General, the only African-American Republican in statewide office doesn't face a primary challenger either. But there are 2 Democrats who need to win over their party's voters in order to advance. I spoke to the Democratic candidates coming up here. 4 years ago, Republican Timothy DeFore became the first African-American elected Auditor General. DeFore is unopposed for renomination, but 2 Democrats, Philadelphia State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta and Lehigh County Controller Mark Pinsley want to oversee how state money is spent.
Literally every dollar that we spend somehow impacts somebody's life.
You're the public advocate. You're that one person in government who's making sure people aren't getting screwed.
Both Kenyatta, who is the first African American LGBTQ plus man elected to the General Assembly, and Pinsley, who defeated a Republican incumbent, share similar views, but point to some differences.
Bring a not only unique experience in terms of my lived experience, but very serious experience over a half decade in Harrisburg. You know, I serve on the state government committee, which, as the name implies, oversees multiple state agencies.
I would say the thing that separates us the most are our qualifications. You know, so my background is in finance. I have my MBA in finance, and I've been working in large companies, and I'm currently the controller.
Kenyatta stresses his vision of a more activist office, while Pinsley says he knows how to use the Auditor General's office.
I did an audit as controller where I showed we spend about $30 million a year in healthcare. We were able to bring back $9 million to the county over 3 years. I found, during the Dobbs decision, I found that Wells Fargo was donating to anti-choice candidates. So I asked our commissioners to divest all $145 million and try and put it into a bank that is nonpartisan, because I would like to see big money out of politics.
The Auditor General is at its core a leader, and leaders have to have a vision for their departments, a vision for the future. No Auditor General, him or herself, is conducting individual audits. What they're doing is being a project manager. They're laying out a vision and then leading a staff to do it.
Both Kenyatta and Pinsley say they are the right choice to take on the incumbent.
I have the qualifications to go stand with him toe to toe, whereas my opponent does not. Also, I've had the experience of flipping seats from red to blue, where my opponent has not.
I've been the person who has stood up on that House floor time and time again, asking tough questions of the critical legislation that's going to be passed and pushing back.
Democrats will choose between Kenyatta and Pinsley on April 23rd. Now, coming up, we'll hear from our panel about what they think voters will be focusing on when they decide these two races. Stick with us. Welcome back to Inside PA Politics. I'm Jon Delano. Let's start with the race for Auditor General. Panel, what do you think people know about the Auditor General to begin with, and do they care about this race? The primary is really among the Democrats. So let me start with both of you. Christian, what do you make of the race for Auditor General?
I think that Kenyatta has the advantage in that he was on the ballot and appeared on the ballot with John Fetterman and Connor Lamb for the Senate race. And so some folks are familiar with him, but both candidates, again, as a Western Pennsylvanian, are unfamiliar with both of them because they're from the eastern side of the state.
Do you think it matters that Pinsley is a controller, so he's had some experience, whereas Kenyatta's been a state rep?
Sure, that might affect him a little, but personally speaking, I do believe Kenyatta has been physically present here in Pittsburgh, PA. He has a lot of connections here when it comes to the young Dems of Pitt, and he makes sure to come out and visit and advocate.
Well, and that will make a difference.
Yep.
Do Republicans care which one of these Democrats gets the chance to run against Stacey Garrity, who's the incumbent? What do you think, Dylan?
I think mostly Republicans don't care that much about who it's going to be. They know that at the end of the day, most people look at Treasurer and Auditor General, and they say, who do we want handling our money and our finances? And they're going to choose a Republican in the state of Pennsylvania, especially because the Democrats right now seem to have, Malcolm Kenyatta seems to have far less experience, and so does Ryan Bizzarro. I mean, they're running against somebody who's been a controller and a small business owner.
We only have about 60 seconds, so let's move to the state treasurer's race, and I'll give you a chance, Madison. Do the Republicans care who runs against Tim DeFore?
Well, I think they're looking for somebody who doesn't take an interview from a car. They're looking for somebody who is incredibly serious. And in this position, in both positions, in fact, They're looking for somebody who is going to do the job and not be an activist.
Right. Well, the car guy was running for Auditor General. This gets confusing.
Exactly.
I'll tell you, we all get confused by this stuff because the treasurer candidates are Aaron McClellan and Ryan Bizzarro. Any thoughts on that race?
I think that Ryan Bizzarro, again, may have the upper hand. He served in House leadership with the Democrats. He received the endorsement, but we will see how that plays out. Again, they're both from Western Pennsylvania, so eastern side of the state folks may not be familiar with them.
And Lindsay, I'm going to give you 10 seconds.
No, I was going to agree. There you go.
That's good. All right. Well, we're going to be right back with more on this Inside Pennsylvania Politics. Stick with us. As we come to the end of the show, one last topic. Who's voting on Tuesday? Are young people engaged at all in this primary, or are they waiting for November? Dylan.
I know a lot of young people who want their voices to be heard now and want to select their candidates, and they're not happy with some of the candidates, so I think they're going to show up more than you would expect them to.
Madison.
Voter registration numbers have been increasing in the Republican Party. I believe you're going to see a greater than average voter turnout.
Lindsay, what do you think?
Absolutely. We're going to go out and vote, young, old, everything in between.
Everyone's going to be out? You agree, Kristen?
I'm voting, and I think that we're going to see a big turnout for young folks come November. It just is going to take a little push, little nudge.
Well, you know we're going to have you all back later on, and we'll talk about whether your predictions are right. So thanks for watching, folks. You can catch this stream every Thursday and Friday at 11 a.m. through the primary election on KDKA.com. And we're also airing on KDKA Plus on Sundays at 12:30. Thanks to all our panelists, and thanks again to you for watching. If you have a suggestion, send me an email at jdelano@kdk.com. Remember, our government is only as good as you make it. Be sure to vote. Have a great day, everyone.